Okay, three, two, one. This is the Phantom of Many Topics on YouTube, and I am here to tell you the story of the adventures of the Space Kitty Hawk. The Space Kitty Hawk is kind of like a parody of several different sci-fi shows, but not any particular sci-fi show, so we don't get into legal troubles, with fan fiction or anything like that. So here's the story. Okay, so our story, it's a medium-sized explorer vessel, and we call it the Alliance Union of Earth and Other Planets. So the Alliance of Earth and Other Planets has this medium-sized vessel, and the name is called the Space Kitty Hawk. That's why our adventures is called The Adventures of the Space Kitty Hawk. And let me introduce you to the crew, beginning with the captain. The captain is a red-headed guy, and his name is Todd McForge. Todd McForge. He is half Irish. He's got some freckles on his face. He's really tall, but he has mainly the respect of the crew. Sometimes he doesn't have respect to the crew, but in deep space, we all just have to get along. Okay, our XO, he did date the XO back in high school, but that was just coincidentally. She was assigned to the Space Kitty Hawk, and her name is Miss Lena Hu. Lena Hu is half Chinese. Her father's Chinese, and her mother is Russian. So Lena Hu. So who's the first officer? Who's on first? It's Lena Hu. And the second officer is this, whatchamacallit, kind of like ogre beast. He's partly made of rock. Well, he feels like rock because his muscles are really big, and he's like this overbearing guy. He does urinate often. He basically he urinates about as much as anybody else urinates, I guess. So nothing special about the urine. Okay, so he's the second officer, and he sits in I don't know, the corner somewhere. And then you have the pilot. The pilot's name is Matthew Moore. Matthew Moore is just your normal American, average-looking American, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. He's not a Nazi just because he's blonde-haired and blue-eyed, but just your normal, everyday, pilot. Nothing special. Matthew Moore, we'll just have to get back to him. He's kind of just looks a little bit like Vanilla Ice, but not as muscular, okay? And so, okay. The navigator is an Irish guy. Well, the captain's Irish, and so is the navigator. He's an Irish guy named James McDoohan. So we got two Micks. The captain is named Todd McForge, and the helmsman is named James McDoohan. So McDoohan is a navigator. He's a very good navigator, but his problem is that he is often drunk. Sometimes he can actually perform his navigation duties while being drunk. So the captain sometimes looks the other way because since the pilot is kind of average, he really needs to have a good navigator. So, okay. And then there is this robot, not really an android, but a robot. And we just call him Robot 154. and he sits in the other corner. And the robot just not quite as human as in some of the other TV shows. So we don't call him an android. We just call him Robot 154. Okay? And then, of course, there is the security chief. She's got really short hair. She likes to dye it pink. See, by the 23rd or the 24th century, pink hair on duty is okay. So, she's got pink hair. It's a little bit short. She's kind of a punk rocker, but she's very strong. And she's not strong because she comes from some planet that has some sort of gravity thing or anything like that. She's just strong because she lifts weights. She's kind of like Miss Olympia or something like that, but not really that. And then, of course, we have Doctor, and Doctor Who is actually the Exo's cousin, and Doctor Who is a guy. Okay, so it's like not a female, because Doctor Who being female would just not be just. We don't want that right now. So Doctor Who is this male who is the cousin of the first officer, Lena Who, and his name is Gordon Who. So you got on first officer or first base, you got Lena Who is again half Russian and half Chinese. You got Gordon who's her husband or her cousin, and that's the doctor. So I guess he's considered the third officer. Usually the medical officer is the third officer. So you got Who's on first and third, and then the whatchamacallit, we just call him What. And he's like, again, this alien that the muscles are as hard as rock, and he comes from a race called Dwayno Johns. So it's hard to pronounce their race. And so the enemy of our Earth Alliance Union, whatever, is called the Krug. Now, the Krug just looks like, your average, everyday, ugly alien. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to use any proprietary names, but that's what it is. So, anyway, so our adventure begins. See, the Space Kitty Hawk has been out for 43 days already, and the speed that it can travel is 20 light years per hour. So that's pretty fast. But anyways, they found a wormhole, and this is the first time that they're in the Andromeda galaxy. The captain has done a few crazy Ivans just to see if the Krug are, following them, but it doesn't quite look like it. But you never know if a Krug is hiding behind a nebula or what have you. It's very strange. I mean, things just happen, and you never know if the Krug are hiding behind an asteroid, hiding behind... See, because the Krug are very sneaky. They're not, they're not like the ogre kind of beast that begins with a K in some other TV shows. They're very sneaky. So, we don't want the Krug to get a jump on our Space Kitty Hawk vessel. And so anyways, Captain Todd is a very competent man. Actually, I guess we should call him Captain Todd McForge. Todd McForge. He's very tall, and like I said, he's got freckles. And so Okay, so anyways, our story begins. Captain Todd comes onto the bridge, and then I guess the first person to notice is Yeoman Haroon. And Haroon is this guy from India, and he goes, Captain on the bridge. And then everybody just kind of just glances over, but not stand or anything, but just looks over. Nothing too crazy or anything like that. But anyways, the captain says, sit rep, and sit rep means situation report. And right now, the EXO is not there, so she's very hot, but she's not there. The second officer, who looks kind of like he has muscles like rock, and the race is called Dwayne Johnson or something like that, and he's got muscles that looks like rock, and he says, Captain, we are entering an asteroid field area, and I'm afraid that perhaps the Krug is hiding behind one of the asteroids and may decide to fire upon us at any time. Things could happen, and we don't know if they're back there or not. And then the captain says, well, what makes you think so? Well, the navigator is, the navigator's drunk, but the fill-in navigator is Yeoman, what's her name? Pretty Prentice, and her name, Priscilla. That's right. Are you drunk, second officer? Asked the captain, and he goes like, well, I've had that synthahol, but not synthahol. I mean, sorry, the synthetic oil to lubricate my muscles, and sometimes that makes me a little bit delirious. But I'm okay. I'm okay. So I guess what happens is, I think I should just be relieved. It's my shift is over anyway. So according to the fifth general order of the Earth Alliance Union, I am properly relieved. So please dismiss me, Captain. And Captain Todd looks over and says, yeah, I think I will dismiss you, because I'm here now and I can handle the bridge by myself, because if I couldn't, then I wouldn't be the captain. So it's okay. You can go back to your quarters. Just don't go to the bar. But maybe I'll go to the bar later. There's a pretty barista there. Her name's Sarah, and she's very pretty. And we keep talking about her. We picked her up on this planet. I mean, like in an alternate universe, they decided to leave her behind after she did all these favors for the crew. But then we decided to take her along, because that way we can show her in more episodes. But like I said, we've been out here for 43 days now in the Andromeda galaxy. We used a wormhole to get here, so we're here basically where no humanoid has ever gone before. So that's pretty special. But there's this asteroid field ahead, and so I'm just going to ask the fill-in navigator, what's your name? Yeoman Priscilla? Yeah, but I go by Renee. Okay, so, Miss Renee, then, can you tell us, are there any Krug ships hiding behind the asteroids? Well, I'm just barely out of the academy, so I'm not too sure I'm very qualified for this, but the regular navigator is drunk, so and then the other shift navigator is asleep, so you can't just use everybody all the time, right? And then the captain says, yes, I agree. Because you're so pretty, Priscilla, we're just gonna let you do whatever it is you do, since you know pretty people get to do what they want. Okay. So, and then, let's see. So the Matt Moore, he's the blonde guy who just kind of looks average. He says, well, I'm not very pretty, but, no, you're just an average pilot, says the captain. Don't even try to, like, say you're exceptional or anything, but, are you able to, pilot us through this asteroid field? I think we should slow down, sir, he says, Matt Moore says, and he says, okay. So we're just going to go really slow through this asteroid field, not too quickly. Okay, so we're going to, do that. Okay, so it's not, it's my execution, what do you call it? My execution saying will be, do that. Yeah, okay, so that's going to be my saying. Okay, says the captain. So, the pilot does take the Space Kitty Hawk through this not too hard to navigate asteroid field. It's enough for Priscilla's skill to chart the course, and then it's enough for the average helmsman, Matt Moore, to go through. I do want to talk a little bit right now about the background of the Krug. See, they have this religion, and they worship this cow god, this minotaur head cow god named Hortz. I'm sorry, not Hertz, but Hortz. I was pronouncing it wrong. Hortz. And Hortz is their cow god. He looks like a minotaur from Earth's Greek mythology, and he said that the Krug deserved the entire universe, not just part of the universe, but the entire universe. So, anyways, that's why the Earth Alliance Union and the Krug have been at war, because, it's just two different species. They both want the same space. So now the Earth Union found this wormhole that takes over to the Andromeda galaxy. So we're saying, like, well, maybe, the Krug don't know about this wormhole. So if we do more in the Andromeda galaxy, we can give them more room in the Milky Way galaxy. But yet then again, the Krug may have followed us through the wormhole, and we don't know if the Krug are following us and then hiding in nebulas and hiding in asteroids or behind asteroids, and but the Space Kitty Hawk is a mid-sized cruiser, and it's pretty fast ship. You can't talk about some sort of like Killian run or whatever in several parsecs. A parsec is a unit of measurement in space. It is not a speed. Okay, so I don't know what these other people in this other alternate universe are talking about. One parsec is like, the distance is about 3.1 light years or so. That's a parsec. Okay, so when you're talking about a parsec, it is not a speed, but it's rather a distance, 3 light years away. That's not even enough to get to from the solar system of the Terran homeworld to the Andromeda galaxy. It's just I guess it's almost there, 4.2 versus 3.1. So you're about 75% there, but you're not quite there. But it doesn't matter because since we found this wormhole to the Andromeda galaxy, it's okay. It's okay. See, we found the wormhole, and now we're going to try to find planets to colonize out here. But so, because humanity is growing, especially the Asian nations on Earth, they're still having babies, and so the Hispanics to whites are doing better than they did a generation ago. Well, let me just get a drink of iced tea here. Hold on. Let me drink. Okay, it's not Long Island iced tea, okay? That would be like being drunk and on duty, and that would... No. The navigator is the only one who is usually a drunk on duty. The captain has to set a good example, and Captain Todd sets the example of not being drunk on duty. So he is a very... what do we call that? We call that in the Space Navy leadership by example. Leadership by example is what Captain Todd is doing. So anyways, he's not necessarily going to reprimand the navigator, Jim McDoohan, but we might decide to curtail his next shore leave, and we might send him to the ship's Alcoholic Anonymous meeting, and then he would just, when it's his turn, he would say, "Hi, I'm James Doohan, and I'm an alcoholic who sometimes I'm inebriated while I'm working, so the yeoman who just barely graduated from the academy, her name is Pretty Priscilla Prentice. Yes, we do remember, she's just very pretty. And so anyways, yeah, that's how he would say it. But when he is sober, like I said, he's a very good navigator. Very good navigator. So we don't have to worry about getting lost in space or anything like that, because we know where the wormhole is on this side of the Andromeda galaxy. So we can just go back to the Milky Way galaxy anytime we want. So, time passes about 4 hours it takes, because Matt Moore is kind of average. Like a really good helmsman probably could have navigated through this, piloted through this in 2.8 hours, but it's not necessarily his fault, because you have this kind of rookie navigator. She's pretty, and that's why we, but because the other navigator, needs to sleep, you can't just rely on the other navigator all the time if, because James is drunk all that time. So you can't just rely on just like one second class navigator. You have to spread the wealth, So besides, it's good training for Priscilla, and because girls can do what boys can do, right? They can do it just as well. And the 23rd, everybody's equal in the 23rd or 24th century, whatever century we're in. See, because when you travel faster than light, then time is kind of like weird. So back home, it could be a few years before or after time and space, all that Einstein theory, Captain Todd was never really one of those math nerds. He's more like a football guy, Just well, I mean, not American football because that game was boycott, but the British, the British Premier League. I guess in the American states it would be called soccer, but the rest of the world calls that game football. So, anyways, about 4 hours later, they do make it through the asteroid field, and there is a planet ahead, and so the captain asks, Navigator, can you do your scanning, your forward scanning, FAC-A, I guess we call it in the Navy, FAC-A. Do your forward scanning, send out a probe or whatever it is you do, and tell us, is this planet habitable? And she does her thing. It takes her a little bit longer than someone who is seasoned, but again, since she's pretty, we're just gonna forgive her and let her do her thing. And then about maybe 2 minutes later, she says, "Yeah, I think so, but maybe when we go down there, we should wear our spacesuits." Okay, so what we're gonna do is, okay, so in the Space Kitty Hawk Earth Alliance Union universe, there are transporters, but you can't transport anything living, but you can transport like soybeans. Well, I mean, like, plant life is not really life. I'm talking about like animal life or something like that. They tried to transport a cat, but then it died upon, it's just so foodstuffs, because by the 23rd century you really have just soy burgers and soy meat, imitation fish. It's fish soy, it's beef soy, and you got chicken soy. Not really pork soy, because there's several religions on Earth that don't eat pork, so that never really took off as a product that anybody really wanted. So they didn't really they just decided not to do the pork soy. But anyway, so we transfer the foodstuffs and, in these containers, and then the living modules we transfer down there. So because you never know, it's like, can you really trust the scanners? Not really. I mean, what if the planet is not really habitable? If you saw this movie where they went to this faraway planet, well, there's this movie that came around 2010, and it was directed by this guy who previously had the record of the highest grossing movie, and then he used these 3D techniques to film another movie. Well, I'll just tell you, I'm not naming names because we don't want to get into copyright trouble, but the first movie was about the ship that sank, and that movie came out in 1997. It featured two hottie people, a very good-looking young man, and a very good-looking young woman. And then the ship sank, and then so it made a lot of money because people cried. But the next movie was the 3D movie, and because it was a very special kind of 3D, people really went to see it, even though they didn't really like the story. But the story is they went to this planet and it was semi-habitable. That was the point I was trying to get to earlier, is that the planet that... so it could be a planet like that. So we never know until we go down and do the... see, what we do is we go down in it's a space... It's a module that we transport down, and then it unfolds, and then our shuttlecraft docks next to it. And so basically after about 2 hours, you get hooked up, you do the depressurization, you make sure the pressurization is good, and then the modules hook up, they get You make sure that they're clamped correctly, because if they're not clamped correctly, then the oxygen leaks out into the atmosphere, and it could be like that gassy kind of atmosphere in the second movie that I was talking about, the one that came out in 2010, the one where, he made a lot of money because it was a 3D movie, but it wasn't necessarily such a good story. But anyways, so the cruise spends about 2 hours and 45 minutes just to be on the safe side, because you don't really want to rush things. And then, so by then, our navigator has sobered up, so he has decided to put on a red shirt and join the away crew or whatever. And so Jimmy McDoohan is going to lead the away team with several other red-shirted. They're not red shirts, mind you, because that might be a copyright violation. So they're just red-shirted. The midriff is open, but it's not. Okay, it's not some sort of mirrored universe, but it's like like a football jersey that doesn't necessarily cover your belly button. But it doesn't matter because you put on the spacesuit anyway, so no one even knows that you're wearing one of those half cut off shirts. A shirted, it could be red, but it's not, because it's a departmental thing that makes it a red shirt, but okay, I will just admit it. They're just Ohio State fans. Okay, that's why they wear those red shirts. But they're not allowed to wear Buckeye or put Buckeye stickers on the helmet, because that's against the Earth Alliance Union rules. So, but anyways, so after about 2 hours, Jimmy McDoohan calls up and says, "Captain, everything is good down here, and I think we'll do the guinea pig test." Okay, so they brought down a few guinea pigs as well, and they let the guinea pigs leave through this little, like doggy door sort of thing. But the atmosphere from the outside can't get in. But you can send the guinea pig out, and the guinea pigs are trained to go through the doors, because back when they were young, we made them go through the little door in order to get the food. So they think like, hey, out there is going to be food. So they go through this little doggy door thing, and they go out into the atmosphere. But we tied them up to a leash, and then after, they go out for about 15, 20 feet, and then we jerk them back in and see if they're still alive, and it appears that Jimmy McDoohan has said that it's Mick Doohan, yeah. So he's not drunk, but sometimes there's a delay in his assessment because he wants to be sure.